something's going on with Odell Beckham Jr. and the Dolphins. And they can try to downplay it all they want. But the guy signs late in the offseason, 1 year, $3 million contract. He participates in some of the offseason program. He passed a physical on the way through the door. You have to pass the physical to sign the contract. You have to pass the physical to be on the practice field for OTAs, mandatory minicamp, whatever. But then here comes training camp, and he doesn't pass the physical. And we don't know what the injury is. They don't have to tell us. They haven't told us. And we go all through training camp, all through the preseason, and there's no sign of Odell Beckham Jr. on the practice field. And we've heard a couple of times from Tua Tagovailoa, well, I can't really establish chemistry with a guy that's not out on the field. So something weird is happening, and it became officially nutty when he stays on the PUP list going into the initial/final 53-man roster, and that requires him by rule to miss at least 4 games. Something is going on here. Something weird is happening here. I don't know what it is, but I will say it's weird, and they don't want us to know what the truth is.
Well, yes. Now that I mean, your cynicism, Gene, here, I think actually is spot on. I mean, it is. It's odd because NFL media reported yesterday that there was some sort of off-season procedure, which, I mean, that's kind of the first I remember hearing of it, but it's still an undisclosed injury, which, again, Miami has every right to do that. It's not like he's on the roster and it's not game week, so they don't have to tell us what the injury is. But, I mean, usually in the off-season, there is some sort of idea. Oh, it's a knee. It's a hamstring. It's an abdomen. He did a quad. We think he'll be back in X amount of time. And it's always kind of been this nebulous thing with Beckham and the Dolphins throughout training camp. I mean, even the other day when Mike McDaniel was talking about the roster and they asked, okay, is Beckham going to be there for week 1? Or he's going to stay on PUP? He said, oh, it's to be determined. We don't know, like da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean, it didn't seem like, oh, this is something that's going to last another 4 weeks. I mean, if you want to interpret Mike McDaniel's tone, try and do that. Go ahead. It's a little confusing sometimes. But, like, I do think that this is odd. And it's simply odd that we don't know what the injury is, even though they don't have to tell us. At a certain point, usually we figure these things out.
Well, and when there's this nebulous reporting of some sort of procedure in the offseason, first of all, the offseason is 8 months. When was it in the offseason?
Right.
Was it before? Was it before he signed with the Dolphins, and then they missed it on the physical? Were they duped, and they're not going to admit they were duped because they look foolish if they passed him on the physical and didn't know he had this procedure? Or was the procedure something that was done after some sort of an injury that happened during OTAs? That's what's weird about this, because physically unable to perform list implies it's a football injury that happened with them. Otherwise, it would be NFI. Even though it could be a football injury, if it's something that happened playing football with another team, and I don't know enough about the nuances of NFI and PUP, the idea that, if he had an injury lingering from the Ravens last year, still, once you pass the physical, that's all wiped clean. Once you're with a new team and you've passed the physical, how do you end up on the PUP list? Unless they just missed whatever it was. And he passed a physical then, and then based upon whatever he did in the offseason, can't pass the physical now. The whole thing is weird. And it's just, and this is a guy who is a vastly fallen star in the NFL. I don't know why in the hell the Ravens paid him $15 million last year, unless it was like, hey, maybe if we sign him, we'll get Lamar Jackson to sign his contract. And I'm only a little bit kidding about that. But he gets $3 million this year. He's got Jalen Waddle at 28. He's got Tyreek Hill at a real 30 now. Where do I fit in this picture? Do I even really want to be here? I don't know. Just something is weird and off about all of it.
Well, I think, if Kirk Cousins would have had to be on the PUP list, if they hadn't cleared his Achilles, he still would have been on the PUP list, I believe. I don't think I'm too far off there.
Well,
right?
He passed his physical. I think you're right. That's a good point. But he passed his physical on the way in, and there was a caveat on the physical for the Achilles. For the Achilles.
So
okay.
there could have been a caveat.
I don't know if there's any caveat
for whatever this is for Odell Beckham Jr. potentially, but we don't know. And
we didn't even know he was injured last year. We didn't even know he was injured. That's what's weird. It's just
guys go through off-season procedures all the time. Yeah, it is
right.
Weird. It is weird.
But it's just weird because usually we know what's going on. We know, and we don't. And nobody wants to share the truth. And it's little bits and pieces and flashes. And maybe what will happen is by us pointing out how weird it is, the truth will bubble up somewhere somehow. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.